Chris Marsch here. I'm just here to tell you a little bit about my life, man. So I was born in Glen Burnie, Maryland. Probably don't know where that is, but I spent 18 years of my life there. Went to Glen Burnie High School, played a whole lot of baseball. Was pretty good at it. Pretty good at school too. I graduated from Glen Burnie. I had a scholarship to go play at FIU for a bit. Baseball career was cut short, didn't really work out. Realized that out-of-state tuition isn't necessarily the most affordable thing for coming from a middle class, maybe closer to lower middle class family. So I had to get a job. And the way that the job went was I was working at Macy's originally. So I was working at Macy's. I was not necessarily selling, but I was just telling girls that they look good in shoes so that I could then pass on the sale to one of the representatives. And yeah, it was a decent job. I was making like $500 a week. Not too bad, working like 40 hours. And I had rushed to fraternity because I didn't know anybody in Florida when I went to FIU. And I was in a Phi Gamma Delta fraternity. And from then on, I had a lot of guys that were working forbidden in the fraternity, a couple drunk nights of them trying to bring it up to me and recruit me for this job. And I was like, hey man, we can knock doors, make a whole lot of money, come do it with us. I was like, yeah man, I'm drunk, talk to you and I'm sober. The conversation would never happen. And then one day, my future manager had came to the Fiji house. His name was Keith, and he came up to me and was like, "Hey man, like what's up? I heard you're interested in doing Vivint." I'm like, "Am I? I don't know." And then he was like, "Yeah, what if I told you you can make 50 grand in a summer, and all you got to do is knock doors?" And I was just like, "Yeah, it sounds really good." But in the back of my mind, I was like, "No shot, I do this." And on top of that, he was just like, "What if I told you you have to travel?" And keep in mind, I had just moved to Miami, so therefore I was not leaving this place. The food's great, the weather's great. I'm sure y'all know what else is great. But as far as just in general, just an amazing place to be. And he was like, "Yeah, you got to move." I'm like, "Yeah, screw that." But he's like, "I heard you're from Maryland," and I'm like, "I am." He's like, "Well, we're going to Baltimore," and I was like, "Really?" So I was thinking, like, you know, my family's there, my friends are there, my whole life was there, and I had just moved about a year ago. And I was 19 at the time, and I was like, yeah, if I get to go back to Baltimore, I kind of get to see my family again and my friends and all that. And even if I get scammed, at least I get to live in this apartment and see my family. And if I do get scammed, I get scammed with all my fraternity brothers. So I had thought it was a great idea just to go and give it a shot. And my idea was I was going to go home. I was going to tell my parents about this amazing job that I got, and I'm going to make all this money in the summer. The company's called Vivint. I'm making 50 grand. It's the Utah Jazz Stadium, all that good stuff. I'm going to make so much money, Mom. It's going to be only for the summer. I'm going back to Baltimore. And my parents' reactions were much different than my reaction was, and they were just like, yeah, no shot. Like, no shot you go leave everything that we created here for you in Florida to go back to Maryland and just do the opposite of what we came here to do, which is go to school, you know, become a doctor, etc. And I was like, yeah, you know, I want to do it. And she was like, hey, if you do this, we're going to cut off all types of resources from you. You will not have a house to stay in when you get back. We're not giving you money for food. And don't even think about asking for money for anything else because we're pretty much done with you. You either live under our rule and live under our household, or we're just not going to be your parents. And I'm like, wow, man. And a little backstory about me. Anything you've ever told me to do, I usually do the opposite. So the very next day, took a flight to Maryland, and I started the summer. And my first idea of the job was I went and shadowed this guy, Keith. He was my manager at the time. Kind of weird, you know, every time he would talk to somebody, he'd be looking at the ground, and I was like looking at the customer. The customer was like looking at him, looking at the ground, and I was just like, this is really awkward. And then he ended up selling 2 that day. So I was like, how in the heck did this guy not even make one thing of eye contact, but yet he's getting these people to buy these cameras? And I automatically assumed that I was going to be the greatest to ever do it. And then my first day out there was the second day. I thought I was going to shadow again. He pulls up to my area and was just like, yeah, get out. I'm like, for real? Like, I don't even have my binder or anything. He's like, no, you got this, man. The best way to learn the job is by figuring it out yourself. I'm like, bro, but I just need to see one more. He's like, nah, get out. So he kicks me out the car with a little script. And then he also I have an iPad on like 30%. And I'm just like, yeah, this is nerve-wracking. I've always been a very, very confident individual. And for the first time in my life, I was like, this is frightening. But either way, I worked up enough courage to go knock on a door, and I knocked my first door. Some really nice lady answered, was just like, hey, how can I help you? And I'm just like, And I just walk away. I didn't even say a word. I didn't work for Vivint. My name wasn't Chris at that point. And I dipped. And the rest of the day, I was just looking at my iPad, walking around turf, didn't talk to a single person. It started to rain. Had to run to this baseball field, sit in a dugout. And the first person I call is my mom. And I'm like, hey, Mom, you're right. This job sucks. I feel like a homeless person out here. I'm knocking on doors. I'm sitting on curbs. This piece of paper they gave me soaking wet. I just can't do this. Like, get me a flight home immediately. And my mom it was Tuesday at the time. My mom was like, yeah, honey, I love you. We're going to get you home. Don't worry. And turns out that the only flight that they could afford was on Sunday. It was Tuesday. So I wanted to get out of there immediately. But she was like, no, the only thing that is less than $500 is on Sunday. And that's when you're coming home. And I was like, dang it. So the whole time from like Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, Saturday, I was in this mindset as in like, bro, I have so many of my friends doing this. I cannot let them know that I'm quitting. So at least I got to do is just give it my best effort and to make it seem like I'm learning the pitch, make it seem like I'm actually doing it so that when Sunday comes, they're never going to see me again. And Wednesday came, I ended up knocking some doors. Hey, I work for Vivint. We got cameras. You want cameras? No. Okay, cool. At least I said something. And then Thursday came. All right. At least I'm no longer Vivint that works for Chris. I was kind of butchering my pitch, but I got it all the way down to like, hey, something about a sign. You do something with this sign, we're going to do something for you, I guess. I don't know what it was. It was a weird pitch back then. But then come Friday, somebody let me in their house. It was like halfway in. I had like 1 foot in the door, 1 foot out the door. The husband was like, we're not interested. But at least I felt some AC on my face. So that was enough to be like, all right, cool. I'm getting better. And then Saturday came, I actually got in a house at like 4 or 5 o'clock and they wanted it, bro. They were like, Vivint, cameras, never heard of you guys, but we need cameras. I'm like, well, I'm the guy to give you some cameras. What's up? Don't know how much this cost you, but I promise you it's going to be something good. And then it turns out they failed credit. And it was like a little red thing. And I was like, red doesn't mean good. And it turns out that I called my manager. I was like, hey, it's red. It says fail. What does that mean? They're like, yeah, they can't get it. I'm like, damn. But yeah, it turns out I made no money my first week. But one thing I want you guys to realize is that like, failure is growth. And I've always been a type of person to fear failure. Not to toot my own horn, but, throughout life, I was good at a lot of things. When it came to making friends, when it came to playing baseball, when it came to getting good grades, these things came like second nature to me. But the things that I wasn't good at were the things that I would usually quit to then find something else I'm good at. And this job was something that I was the worst at. And through Tuesday, not even being able to say my name, to Saturday being able to get into a house and potentially sell a customer, I had came to a realization that I needed to stop being a wuss and really just embrace this failure. And for as long as I was afraid to fail, I was afraid to grow. And some of the things that you're scared to do are some of the things that are going to make you feel most alive. So I called my mom back on Saturday night after knocking. This is the most monumental phone call I ever had in my life. My mom picks up like, hey, honey, you ready to come home? Yeah. And I was like, Mom, actually, I'm not. I made no money this week. But from Tuesday to Saturday, I realized something that I've never realized in my life was that failure is good. And she's like, what? I'm like, yeah, Mom, I made $0 this week, but somehow I still want to do this. And quite frankly, I'm tired of quitting. I quit on you, I quit on my ex, I quit on baseball, and I don't want this to be a slippery slope, whereas if things get hard, I just give up. And I feel like I owe myself this. And I tell you what, give me 1 more week to make it happen. If I sell, I'm going to pay you back for the flight. If I don't, I'll come home, I'll take summer A classes, I'll be the kid you want me to be, but just give me 1 more week. So she was like, are you sure? I'm like, yeah, Mom, cancel the flight. Boom. Phone call's over. And then Monday, nothing. Tuesday, nothing. Wednesday, nothing. Thursday, nothing. Still getting better. By Friday, I have some lady answer the door. She's like cooking breakfast at like 2 p.m. I'm like, what the heck's going on? But she like comes in, like feeds me some eggs. I'm drinking like cafecito with her and stuff. And she's like, so what are you selling? I'm like, cameras. She's like, okay, I'll buy some cameras. I'm like, okay, all right, cool. And then I just kind of start calculating the iPad. So she's like, how much is it? And I'm like, and she just grabs the iPad, looks at it, and is like, okay, I want 1 more camera. She's like, $100, I'll take it. Throws the iPad back at me. I'm like, what? Like, I don't even know. I run the credit. This time it's green. I'm like, okay, cool. I think green means good. Call my manager. Hey, it's green. He's like, I'm coming over. So he comes over, helps me close it down. I was like, wow, this is a lot of money for one lady that gave me some breakfast and I drank cafecito with and literally sold herself. This job's pretty cool. And then the same day, I was working all day, mad confidence, by the way. As soon as you get your first sale, it's like a feeling you haven't felt. Maybe once in your life you felt it. And this is a feeling that you just want to continue to feel again and again and again. It's like this sales high. And bro, I'm walking up to people. I'm like, Vivint, you want it? They're like, no. I'm like, okay. And I'm just like mad confident the whole day. And then some dude pulls in. 8 o'clock, I'm waiting for my car group, just about to finish knocking. It was getting dark. It was very early in the summer. And I see him pull in, and I walk up to his door. Before he can even get out of the car, he like looks out his window, and he's like, Vivint? I'm like, yeah, you want it? He was like, yeah, I was just about to call you guys. I'm like, for real? So I ended up selling him too. And I made 2 sales that day, my first day ever selling. It was a Friday. I bageled for 10 days straight before I got my first sale.